The sun rose over the rugged mountains of Afghanistan, painting the dust with gold. A convoy of military vehicles cut through the silence, wheels grinding over broken earth. Helicopters loomed like shadows overhead. Every mile forward meant deeper. Into danger. Inside one of the Humvees, Specialist David Cole sat quietly, his gaze steady. His hand resting on the sleek fur of his canine partner, Valora, powerful Belgian Malinois, trained to detect the invisible threats buried in the dirt. Fierce, in his duty, gentle in spirit. Valor's ears perked as Cole smiled at him. "You ready, boy?" "Another day, another sweep," Cole said. Valor responded with a soft bark, tail thumping against the floor. He nudged into Cole's side. The bond between them wasn't just forged in training, it was something deeper, something loyal, something unshakable. The voice of Sergeant Ruiz crackled over the radio, giving the day's order. Cole and Valor were up front, point team, always the first ones out, always the ones to test the silence of an unfamiliar village. Minutes later, they reached the entrance to a quiet compound. The world seemed to still. No children, no farmers, no merchants. Just wind and dust and waiting. Cole stepped forward with Valor at his side, their movements synchronized. Valor's nose worked the air. Then he stopped. His body went rigid. Cole's voice dropped. "Hold up, I think he's got something." And then chaos. A thunderous explosion tore through the ground beneath them. Fire, smoke, screaming steel. Bodies were thrown like rag dolls. Blood hit the earth. The force ripped Cole back into the air. For a moment, everything disappeared. Into black. When the light returned, it was pale and flickering. A field hospital, somewhere behind the lines. Cole lay still, his body broken, bandaged. His mind was lost in the silence between the blast and now. But Valor was alive, barely. His hind leg was mangled, twisted and soaked. The medic crouched beside him, stunned by the fact that this dog had taken the brunt of the blast and was still breathing. Valor didn't cry out. He simply looked around, searching for Cole. The next days blurred into a storm of noise and metal. Sirens, surgery, blood, a medevac flight back across the ocean. Emergency teams worked on both man and dog. Cole sank into a coma. Valor was prepped for amputation. His leg couldn't be saved. Weeks later, in a quiet veterinary clinic in Germany, Valor lay on a soft mat, missing a part of himself. A young vet tech named Lena brought him food every day. She whispered to him gently, hoping to reach something that seemed buried deep inside. "You're a miracle," she told him once. But Valor just stared at the door as if waiting. Across the base, Cole opened his eyes for the first time since the blast. The lights above him hummed. His arm was gone. His ribs hurt with every breath. Panic surged in his chest as he asked the only question that mattered. "Valor. ... Where's Valor?" It took days before they let him see his dog. When they did, Cole was wheeled into the room, still weak, still learning how to live inside a body changed by war. When Valor saw him, it was as if something returned to the world. The dog limped over, awkward on 3 legs, but his tail wagged like a flag. Cole reached for him, tears in his eyes. Hey there, buddy." Valor pressed into him, a soft whimper escaping. Lena stood nearby, watching them both. "We weren't sure he'd make it," she said. "But he kept going. It's like he was waiting for you." From that day forward, they healed together. Mornings were filled with rehab Valor, learning to walk with a prosthetic leg, Cole struggling with the mechanics of a new arm. Frustration came often, but they pushed each other. Every small victory mattered. Months passed. One day in a quiet office, an officer handed Cole the final decision. His injuries disqualified him from further service. He would be honorably discharged. But there was one thing they could offer him, something more important than any medal. They were retiring Valor from active duty, and Cole had the first right to adopt him. He didn't hesitate. Back in the States, they came home together. A soldier and his dog, both changed, both survivors. The apartment was small, the nights too quiet. But Valor was there, always there, Cole. often caught himself staring into the darkness, wondering what it all meant. They had made it out, but neither felt whole. Valor understood. He always did. When the nightmares came, it was Valor's presence that calmed Cole's shaking hands. When the prosthetic slipped, when the pain overwhelmed him, when memories of the explosion clawed at the edges of his mind, it was Valor who kept him grounded. They tried to live simply. Cole volunteered with local veterans. Valor began training. As a therapy dog, the children loved him. Other vets, too. There was something in Valor's eyes, something that said, "I know, I've been there." Cole met a woman named Maya, a therapist who ran a group for injured service members. She never pushed him, just listened. Over time, he spoke more, trusted her more, but there were still days when the guilt roared back, of the men they lost, the lives they couldn't save, and of the strange, aching fact that he and Valor were still here. One night, the local news ran a story on them. Photos of Valor in uniform. Images of the two of them standing strong, side by side. Calls came in, speaking gigs, interviews, awards. Cole didn't want the attention. He wasn't sure he'd earned it. Didn't want to turn Valor into some hero mascot. Valor had already done enough. Then, one quiet morning, Valor began barking, loud, frantic. There was a gas leak in the building. Cole hadn't smelled it, but Valor had. The dog herded him out, barking and nudging. Moments later, the alarms went off. They saved their neighbor's life, again. And that was when Cole understood. Valor hadn't stopped being a soldier. Neither had he. They had just been given a new mission, so he accepted an invitation to speak publicly for the first time. Not because he wanted to talk about war, because Valor deserved to be honored. That night, Cole stood at a podium clean-shaven. In a formal jacket, Valor wore his service vest and prosthetic with pride. The lights were bright. The crowd quiet. Cole took a breath. "He saved me," he said, voice steady, more than once. But what he gave me most was the courage to live. The applause faded. Cole stepped away from the podium, Valor at his side. The lights still burned behind him, but something inside had changed. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like a ghost moving through the world. Felt seen, not just as a soldier, but as someone learning how to live again. After the event, people approached. Children reached for Valor, who dipped his head so they could pet him gently. Veterans gripped Cole's hand. Some said nothing. They didn't need to. The silence between them spoke volumes. Pain recognizing pain. Survival recognizing survival. Later, that night, back at home, Cole sat by the window, the night air cool and still. Valor lay curled at his feet, his breathing slow and steady. Cole glanced down and spoke softly, barely above a whisper. "We made it through war, but I think this part might be the real fight." Time moved on, quiet and steady. Cole began working with a local veterans outreach program, helping others like him transition back into civilian life. Valor came along every day. Their bond wasn't something they spoke about much anymore. It just existed, a silent, ever-present, and deeply understood. Maya, the therapist who once helped Cole through his worst moments, had become more than a counselor. She was now a colleague, friend. Something more, perhaps, but neither of them rushed it. They shared long talks, short smiles, and quiet coffee mornings that meant more than words could say. There was a young Marine in the program, barely out of high school, barely hanging on. His leg was gone, his eyes empty. Daisy didn't speak. But when he met Valor, something shifted. He didn't try to talk. He just sat beside the dog, resting his hand gently on Valor's back. No questions. No judgment. Cole remembered being that version of himself. He sat beside Jace and said quietly, "You don't have to talk. Just keep showing up." Jace nodded. And he did. Cole and Maya started hosting community talks on post-traumatic growth, not just about surviving trauma, but transforming because of it. Valor came too. Always quiet, always present. At schools, hospitals, veteran centers he was, becoming something of a symbol, not of war, but of resilience. One cold winter night, Cole took Valor to a candlelight vigil for fallen soldiers. Snow drifted silently from the sky. Families held pictures. Some wept. Others stood in silence, candles flickering in trembling hands. When it was his turn to speak, Cole didn't talk about bravery or medals. He spoke about grief, about guilt, about coming home with pieces missing, not just physically, but emotionally, about the weight of survival. And this guy, Cole said, resting a hand on Valor's back, he kept me here. He reminded me I wasn't done yet. Months later, the VA reached out. They were forming a new unit of canine handlers, young soldiers. Preparing to deploy, they asked if Cole would help train them. He hesitated. Turning to base meant facing echoes of who he used to be, but something told him it mattered. He said yes. At the training field, recruits watched with quiet reverence. As Cole worked, Valor, older now, moved slower. His steps were deliberate, steady. The scars showed, but so did the strength. The new handlers watched in awe. One, a young woman named Sergeant Harris, approached him quietly. "How do you trust them when it's life or death out there?" Cole smiled slightly. "You don't just trust them. You become them. They become you." That night, as they packed up, Cole stood at the edge of the field, watching the sun dip behind the fence line. He turned to Valor, his voice low. "We gave them something today. Just like you gave me." Valor wagged his tail, slow and sure. Years passed. Seasons shifted. Valor aged. The gray in his muzzle deepened. He no longer chased birds or bolted toward the front door. Sometimes, Cole had to help him up the stairs. But Valor's spirit remained, strong, watchful, loyal. Then one morning something changed. Valor didn't rise. His breaths were shallow. His eyes tired. Cole rushed him to the vet, holding him gently in his arms, heart pounding with a familiar ache. The vet was kind. She examined him carefully, quietly. "It's time," she said softly. Cole nodded, though the word cracked something. In his chest, he knelt beside his best friend, cupping Valor's face in both hands. "You can rest now, boy," he whispered. But he did more than enough. Valor's eyes met his until the very last heartbeat. Still watching, still guarding, still loving. He passed in Cole's arms just as he'd lived in service, in loyalty. In absolute trust, Cole buried him beneath a quiet tree outside the city, where the air smelled clean and the sun shone just. Right, he carved a stone himself. It read, "Valor Soldier, Survivor, Savior, Forever Faithful." The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. Cole didn't speak at events. He stopped visiting the center. The house felt empty. The world smaller. But Maya waited. She never pushed. She simply placed a small envelope on his table one day and left. Inside was a photograph, an old one. Cole and Valor, side by side in uniform. Proud whole. On the back, a single handwritten line. "He gave you strength. I'll share it." Cole stared at the words for a long time. Then slowly he stood up. He went back. To the outreach program. To the training fields. To the schools. He spoke not of Valor's death, but of his life. What it meant to be carried by loyalty, healed by love. Of the quiet courage of a dog who never once hesitated to walk into danger. Eventually, Cole met another dog. A young shepherd rescued from a shelter, not trained for war, not shaped by combat, but full of life, full of need, full of potential. He didn't replace Valor. He never would. But he reminded Cole that life continues, that purpose can be passed forward. And so Cole trained him, not for combat, but for connection. Not for war, but for healing. The journey didn't end in the blast. It didn't end in the hospital, or the clinic, or the silence that followed. It kept going in every life touched, in every story told, in every soldier reminded that they are. Not alone, not while someone still remembers, not while someone still carries their name, not while love, in any form, still holds the line.